The Oklahoma City Dodgers have definitely been the funnest team to follow so far in 2023. They have 5 comeback victories. 3 of them are in walk-off style, just like last night. That's been DeLuca, who tagged up on a shallow fly ball from Devin. Man, just, hey, force the defense to try to make a play. Maybe they make a mistake, something of which they did. Jahmai Jones has the other 2 walk-offs. So Oklahoma City, they won again. They have only lost twice this year. They've had great production from Luke Williams, we're going to talk about in this video. Also, Michael Busch. Jahmai Jones has played very well. So, hey, this has been a very, very fun team to follow. The bullpen has just been absolutely fantastic for Oklahoma City. So, hey, again, 5 comeback victories. 3 of them have been walk-offs for AAA Oklahoma City. Well, if you've been following Dodgers baseball going back to spring training, one prospect that has probably caught your attention by now is catcher hunterfeduccia. You probably noticed the long and lanky size of the young Louisiana native. Hunter grew up in Louisiana. He went to LSU Eunice out of high school, then he went to LSU for his final year. He has been with the Dodgers ever since. So the question I've got, hey, people are pretty impressed with the way he receives the ball. He's a big target. They've been able to see that. He has soft hands. He frames the ball very well. And like I said, he gives that pitcher a big strike zone to throw to. So the one question I get the most about hunterfeduccia is, what does his arm look like? And of course, if you look at the statistics, they're not pretty, and they're not going to be pretty for any catcher in the Dodgers minor league system, because the Dodgers pitchers in the minor league system just don't put any kind of emphasis at all on holding runners. So don't look at statistics. You look for yourself. Look at that arm right there. What do you think about that? Is that an arm that you think can be serviceable at the major league level? We've seen, major league teams, especially the Diamondbacks, just stealing the Dodgers blind at times. So the one question I get about hunterfeduccia, what's the arm look like? You be the judge for yourself. Mark Washington, 6'7", out of Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. He went to Lehigh and had a very good career there. He has been with the Dodgers. Boy, I'll tell you what, he goes on what are known as, he calls them heaters, where he goes long periods of time and several different outings. And look at the arm side run on that. That's very, very good. That's that same pitch there for hunterfeduccia that you saw him throw down just a minute ago. Okay, but I want you to notice Mark Washington pitching now in this video, because he pitched very well last night, and he actually was pretty dominant. He went 2 innings. He gave up no runs, just 1 hit. He threw 17 strikes in 21 pitches. So not only was he dominant, he was also very efficient. 6'7", great extension. He has the good slider, the good changeup, the 4-seam up in the zone. And like I said, when he's on, like he's on right now, his ERA on the year is 2.84. He's very, very confident. He pitches with a lot of confidence on the mound, and he can go long periods of time of total dominance. Just check his stats from last year. He'll go 10, 11, 12, maybe up to 15 games without giving up a run. So Mark Washington, a very good prospect in bullpen relief. We've seen the bullpen be a little bit leaky for the Dodgers lately. We're going to go over in our Dodgers Dog show tonight. Actually, we just went over whenever this same clip you saw before, but we're looking at Mark Washington at this point. Mark Washington was totally dominant last night. He was equally as efficient. Matter of fact, he didn't give up any runs. He gave up just 1 hit, and he threw 17 strikes in 21 pitches, and he has been very good. He's been known to go on what he calls heaters, meaning he goes long periods of time and several different outings in a row without giving up runs. I love the emotions he pitches with. I say it all the time. I love players and pitchers especially that can pitch and play with emotions but not be emotional, meaning you get the positive competitive energy flowing inside of you, but you're not just basing all of your ups and downs on results, So, hey, pitch with emotions, but don't be emotional. Mark Washington is the master at that. Again, 2.84 ERA on the year, and we've seen, that Dodgers bullpen be leaky. We've talked about that already. And so, hey, who are the candidates that might come up and help the bullpen? Of course, Mark Washington is not on the 40-man, but there's several of them, Mark Washington being one of them. He is a good young prospect, 6'7", out of Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, went to Lehigh, been with the Dodgers ever since. So, very high on this young man, Mark Washington. Another guy, if the Dodgers end up calling up people from Oklahoma City for bullpen help, of course, it's an outside shot, but Taylor Scotty has major league experience. He went scoreless again last night. He has yet to give up a run in the regular season for Oklahoma City. That spans 4 outings. So, Hey, Taylor Scott, that three-quarter slot, I say it every time I talk about him. He offers something different than what other relievers can offer in the sense that he has that three-quarter slot. So if you have guys that like to pull off and are dead pull type of guys that might pull off of him and make it hard on him, he might be a very good matchup for certain people. You see that hitter right there. See how he had to almost dive over the plate to stay on that? That's because of that three-quarter slot. As a right-hander, you have to tell yourself consciously not to pull off of it. So you see guys almost overcorrect, that whenever you wreck, usually you don't wreck on the side, you go off the road on the start. What happens is you overcorrect, you end up wrecking on the other side of the road. That's kind of what happens to hitters. Look at that. He jammed himself right there. You're seeing it. Because the hitter is consciously telling himself, don't pull off of that three-quarter slot, you almost dive into the ball too much and jam yourself to the point where it's almost counterproductive. So Taylor Scott, he offers something that other relievers don't. So, hey, it's an outside shot, but of course, he does have Major League experience, so it's not that big of an outside shot. If the Dodgers do need, if they come to the conclusion that they do need help from AAA Oklahoma City for the bullpen, Taylor Scott might be one of those guys. Boy, this guy, Nick Robertson, look at that little cutter slash slider pitch. He actually labels it as a slider, the four-seam up. He's always been good, and I've always been very impressed. There's his changeup. But I'll tell you what, last night and so far this year, he just has a different look to him. He's made some mechanical adjustments. He's made some adjustments to his body. And I'll tell you what, he just looks really, really good. And last night was his fourth scoreless outing in a row. His ERA on the year, 1.69. Look at that four-seam down in the zone. Fantastic location. And then he tunnels that little slider off that fastball. Do you see that four-slot location to the fastball, that low and away, and then you tunnel the slider off of it to the hitter. It looks like it's going to be that same fastball that hits that outside corner and low. Instead, it dives off the plate and takes that left turn, and you get the swing and the miss. That was a great tunnel you saw right there from Nick Robertson. So, again, his ERA 1.69, whip just 0.19. And, hey, look for yourself. I mean, this guy's 6'6", so he's got long extension, long reach. It's like he's handing the ball to the catcher. He has three pitches, and it just seems like he generates a lot of energy without a whole lot of effort to me. So, and I like his slider. So, hey, you be your own judge. What do you see about Nick Robertson here? Do you like what you see? He's been very good. I think he's primed to have a really good season in 2023. Hey, another guy that, he's not only Major League experience, but Major League experience with the Dodgers, that if the front office thinks, hey, let's dive into our AAA depth to try to shore up our bullpen at some point, Justin Bruihl certainly would be a candidate for that. He has been very, very good this year. He went scoreless in his one inning and has not given up a run in his 4 outings in the regular season. That dates back to spring training, or dating back to spring training, I should say. He has not given up a run in his last 5 outings. So that little cutter pitch, slider pitch for Justin Bruihl has been very good. There's that back foot slider. Then he also throws a cutter that's a little bit more horizontal. There's that cutter right there. See how that cutter's a little bit more horizontal? And that back foot slider, there's the cutter again. That back foot slider gets a little bit more depth. Then he pairs that with about a 91-mile-an-hour fastball that he locates very well based off of his locations of his cutter and slider. So Justin Bruihl, he has been throwing very well. There's that little cutter pitch in for a strike, kind of a get-me-over strike one pitch. I like that. And then there's another little cutter trying to give a little bit more depth. And then right there's that back foot slider. So you just saw the combination that's made Justin Bruihl. There's another really big back foot slider with 2 strikes. See how he gets a little bit bigger with 2 strikes and a little bit smaller when he's just trying to get it in the zone to get strike one. So Justin Bruihl, he understands how to pitch. He knows how to sequence. He knows when to make his slider bigger. And not only does he know when to do that, he can actually execute it. And he's executed very well to the tune of, like I said, he has not given up a run in his 4 outings in the regular season, and in his last 5 when he date back to spring training. Michael Busch had 3 hits and 3 RBIs for AAA Oklahoma City last night, and I'll tell you what, he has hits in 7 games in a row, and if you go all the way back to spring training, he has hits in 14 out of his last 15 games. I say it every time I talk about him, so I won't go on and bore you with the details, but Michael Busch, he has done everything he possibly can at the AAA level. The Dodgers, I'll say it again, and I'm going to say it every single time I talk about them, they need to find a minimum of 200 at-bats Major League-wise this year for Michael Busch. If I had my druthers, it would be at least 300 and probably more than that. Michael Busch, again, he's hitting .333 on the year. 3 hits last night, 3 RBIs, hits in 7 games in a row, 14 out of his last 15. Emmet Sheehan threw for the second time yesterday for the Tulsa Drillers, and I tell you what, his first outing was absolutely dominant. He sat down 12 hitters in a row. 6 of those were via strikeout. If you go back to the Arizona Fall League, remember, he struck the 8 hitters out in a row with his big fastball in the Arizona Fall League. And how about this? Okay, so far in his 2 outings, 9 innings total, he has 17 strikeouts and just 1 walk. So his strikeout to walk ratio so far in 2023, 17-1. That's pretty darn good. His whip is just 0.44, so fantastic. His ERA on the year is good as well, just a little bit over 2. So Emmet Sheehan, boy, I'll tell you what, explosive is the best way to describe him. That fastball has reached as high as 99. The 3/4 arm slot, the run he gets on it, it is a very explosive pitch. That's Andy Pajes, center field, making a really nice catch. We're going to talk about him in a minute. But again, Emmet Sheehan, 17 strikeouts so far this year, 1 walk. This is Brandon Lewis, and this is his first home run of 2023 against the Midland Rockhounds. And I'll tell you what, young man, I call it hometown power because he's from the L.A. area, went to L.A. Pierce, which is a really powerhouse JUCO program in the Los Angeles area, and then went to UC Irvine. He was an anteater where he had a very good career before the Dodgers drafted him, and I'll tell you what, he's done a great job just shaping his body into a professional athlete and giving him the ability to be a good corner infielder, and he is very good both at third and first base. I kind of compare him, I'm not saying he's going to have this kind of career, but Bob Horner's type player. His footwork around the bag is good. I tell you what, his arm is just very accurate. If you watch him throw the baseball, the transfer from field to throw is flawless. The arm action is great. I'm not sure I've ever seen him make an inaccurate throw, and he has very, very, very soft hands. And I'll tell you what, his feet have gotten quicker since he's become a professional, and so he is, a very, very serviceable third baseman. He's just a very good first baseman, and like I said, he hit, he had the highest home run per at-bat rate in 2021 of anybody in the Dodgers minor league system, so he has a lot of power. And another thing about him, kind of like Miguel Vargas, if he's looking away like he did on this pitch, as this pitch plays back again, you'll see it's on the outer half and he pulls it. So he's looking for a ball out over the plate to hit over that left center field wall. Well, if you jam him inside right there, he's great at just pulling the hands inside and shooting that thing to right field. That's a very skilled thing to do as a hitter. It's hard to teach, and he has the ability to do that. So Brandon Lewis is, he's a prospect. I'm just telling you, the organization is very, very high on. Well, here's Johnny DeLuca, center fielder, outfielder type for the Dodgers that just got put on the 40-man. He just got put on some of the top prospects list, and for very good reason. He can hit a ton of home runs. He was on pace to hit 30 last year or above 30, and then he also steals a lot of bases, so he has great speed. And the thing about him, whenever you can just beat out a base hit with your legs because you have speed, and then you can also hit home runs, that's just a valuable combination for a club. In high school, he was a long jumper, and he's very, very good at it. Matter of fact, he actually trained with Tiara Davis, and her dad, Tiara Davis's dad, was actually their coach. So he knows what Olympic-style coaching is. He knows what Olympic-style athleticism is, and he liked to do track to keep himself in shape in the offseason while he was in high school there in the Los Angeles area. So Johnny DeLuca, a great athlete, very strong. At Oregon, he was a switch hitter, and he led off, and he kind of liked to just slap the ball left-handed, try to get on base, use his speed. Then when he got the Dodgers, he got bigger, he got stronger, became only a right-handed hitter. Now all of a sudden he has power, and he still can hit for average as well. So Johnny DeLuca, a big-time prospect in the Dodgers organization. Hey, this is the first sighting of Jose Ramos on Dodgers Daily for the 2023 season. It will not be his last. I think he caught a lot of people's attention with his play in the World Baseball Classic for Panama. He did such a great job. Hey, when you're talking about just raw tools, just running, arm streak, power, the ability to hit for average, just raw tools, there's nobody really prospect-wise that has more raw tools than Jose Ramos. Now, raw tools don't always correlate and, into great production, but it has for Jose Ramos. He is just super talented. He has the bazooka for the arm. He has great foot speed. He has a world of power. He can hit for average. You see, he can hit the ball up the field, use the big part of the field. So Jose Ramos, hey, when he puts things together, of course, there's a lot of swing and miss there too with Ramos. You see that little bit of lift in his swing. He swings and misses a lot. And I tell you what, if you look at his stolen base numbers, he's a faster guy than his stolen base numbers would indicate. I wish, my wish list, of course, he would steal more bases in 2023 and then cut down on the strikeouts, bring his strikeout rate down to around 21 or 22%, get his stolen bases up to about 15, and he would be a top shelf. Absolutely, there wouldn't be a better outfield prospect in the game at that point if he could reach those two benchmarks, in my opinion. So Jose Ramos, very talented young outfielder. Talk about talent. Boy, Andy Paez, he has been absolutely on a mission. He dropped 35 pounds, and the thing about that is, because of that, now he's more agile, and now the Dodgers can put him in center field, which just increases his marketability. It gives the Dodgers more options as far as if they want to bring him up, where they can play him. If you can play all three positions in the outfield now, you're a little bit more marketable for the team you're playing with. And B, hey, if he does become a trade piece at some point, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, hey, the Dodgers have a wealth of prospect capital. They have more than, just do the math. They have more great prospects like Andy Paez than they could ever bring up to Los Angeles. That's just math. Just do math. So somebody's going to have to get traded, and you hope you do it whenever these young prospects are at their peak value. And then that's a good thing for these players because that gives them a better chance to reach the major leagues versus staying in an organization like the Dodgers that has them blocked. So, hey, if a guy like Andy Paez becomes a trade piece for, say, a pitcher that you need in July, whenever you're trying to fill out your roster to fill in all your holes to win a World Series, that's going to make him a lot more marketable. The fact that now teams know he can play a serviceable, if not a really good, center field for them. The Dodgers' number 15 prospect, Fernandez, got the party started last night for the Great Lakes Loons. And I tell you what, he is a very good player. He is one of the toughest human beings you will ever meet. Catcher-type player, kind of in that Austin Barnes mold, in 2015, 2016, when Barnes was with AAA Oklahoma City. Got to see him quite a bit. He played a lot of second base when he was with AAA Oklahoma City. He played a lot of infield, mostly an infielder in college there at Arizona State. Fernandez, kind of in that mold when you look at all the catchers in the organization. Diego Cartaya, Carson Taylor, Hunterfeduccia, and then Dalton Rushing. That's at the prospect level. Then the Dodgers always go get those guys with major league experience and put them on the AAA roster like Patrick Mazeika, David Freitas. Then Jesus Scalise is also below him at Rancho right now. So lots and lots of catching depth. So when you're a guy like Fernandez, who's not the biggest guy in the world, make yourself as marketable as you possibly can. Play as many positions as possible. He's played a lot of second base. I'm sure he can play third base. I'm sure he can play in the outfield. So Fernandez, keep that marketability, keep that hit tool, keep the toughness. One of the most well-respected players in the organization. Austin Gauthier had a oppo percentage that was 5% higher than his pull percentage last year, which means that he used the big part of the field. He used the opposite field very well, which is good because pitchers like to try to get hitters out on the outer half of the plate. But that doesn't mean he can't sit on a hanging breaking ball or an inside fastball and turn on one for a home run that we saw last night. Austin Gauthier, like he did, good young hit tool. Like I said, he hits the ball the opposite field a lot, but he still can pull the ball. He still does have power, so he can do a little bit of everything offensively. Well, there was a lot of great performances pitching-wise for the Dodgers last night. L.A. had Dustin May, who's reached 100 miles an hour in his career before. AAA had Gavin Stone, who's reached as high as 98. AA had Emmet Sheehan, who's reached 99. And then Great Lakes, they had Jake Pilarski, who hit 101 in his career, in spring training earlier this year. And then at Rancho, you had Madison Jeffrey, that was 98 to 100. So there was some big-time power arms on display last night in the organization. Some great performances. None of them better than 6'4" League City native Braydon Fisher, though. I'll tell you what, look at this curveball that he was dropping right here. That one's a little bit smaller of a curveball than you'll see here in a minute. But Braydon Fisher, I'll tell you what, he had some serious adrenaline flowing. Look at that adrenaline he's got flowing. And I talk about all the time, hey, that adrenaline and those emotions, those are great. But, you know, have those emotions. Look at that curveball there. Have those emotions, but don't be emotional. You know, emotional is making your emotional state based off of results. Emotions lead you to the process of getting those results. Look at that big curveball. So, hey, pitch with emotions. Give yourself that positive adrenaline, but don't be emotional. Braydon Fisher did a fantastic job of that last night to the tune of 5 strikeouts in just 1 2/3 innings, and on the year so far, he has yet to allow a run, and he has 8 strikeouts and no walks in 3 outings. Boy, not very many left-handers are more explosive than Christian Suarez. I've said it for about a year now. Hey, when he is in the strike zone, he doesn't get hit, man. I mean, he had 7 strikeouts and no walks so far this year in 2023. And that's not, you know, hey, the 7 strikeouts, that's to be expected from me. If you watch this guy pitch, he gets as much swing and miss as anybody else. But it's the no walks that's the big deal. You know, he's been in and out of the strike zone. He struggled with throwing strikes at times, which most young prospects at the Rancho level do at some point in their career. But again, no walks this year. You see that big sweeping slider that goes to the back foot of righties that breaks away from lefties. It is just a very, very, very good pitch, you know. And so Christian Suarez, he went in his 2 outings so far, 3.1 innings. He has 7 strikeouts, no walks. That's the big one, the no walks. He's always going to have the strikeouts. What you got to look at, first thing you got to look at the walk column, see how he's doing. That will tell you how his performance went. His stuff is explosive. You know, it's been a little bit of a frustrating start for the Dodgers' number 7 prospect, Dalton Rushing, and that's only because, you know, his reputation has preceded him, and he hasn't gotten a lot of pitches to hit, and he's walked like a million times. But hey, I'll tell you what, first road trip of the year, he's in Dayton last night. He got a couple of good pitches to hit, and he took advantage of it. He had 2 hits last night. You know, he hit 404 going back to the reputation preceding yourself. He hit 404 after he got drafted last summer by the Dodgers going back to Louisville. You know, the good thing about him, we talked about the catcher's depth with hunterfeduccia, Carson Taylor, Diego Cartaya, Dalton Rushing, Jesus Calise, Yeinerfernandez, and then the AAA guys that the Dodgers bring in every single year. You know, last year was Tony Walters, this year Patrick Mazeika and David Freitas, that kind of thing. So the catching depth in the organization, you want to be versatile. You want to be able to play something other than catcher. Good thing about him, he was not the everyday catcher at Louisville till his last year there, and that's because Henry Davis was. So Dalton Rushing had to play first base for the first couple of years he was at Louisville while Henry Davis was the everyday catcher. So you know that Dalton Rushing could play first. He could probably play third base. He could probably play the outfield. And just like Michael Busch, when you can hit like Dalton Rushing, then you just figure out you try to put that puzzle together. What part of the puzzle can he play defensively to get that hit tool in the lineup? That's what the Dodgers will try to figure out with him as he moves up. He is not going to get traded, in my opinion. Neither will Diego Cartaya. I don't see the organization trading either one of them under almost any cost because Dalton Rushing's hit tool is simply too good, and Diego Cartaya, just everything he does is too good. I think those two will stay with the organization, so it's a matter of figuring out defensively where does Dalton Rushing fit in the best. You know, I don't think a lot of people realize that Bubba Elaine, his real name's actually Chris, was the Big Ten Player of the Year at Maryland last year, switch hitter, outfield type. So this is the young man. He wasn't drafted very high. Another one of those deals, scouting department for the Dodgers. They find these guys over and over and over. But again, Taylor Young, he actually was Taylor Young's roommate last year at Rancho Cucamonga. Interesting story there. Bubba Elaine from the Philadelphia area, city boy, no doubt about it. Taylor Young from Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, and he likes that gumbo. And when I talked to Taylor, I asked him about Bubba, and he said, hey, I'm going to get Bubba down here to Louisiana sometime because he ain't never had no real food, So I'm excited to see the first time Bubba Elaine goes down to Louisiana and visits Taylor Young and his family, what he thinks about that gumbo from West Monroe, Louisiana. So, kind of a neat little backstory there. But, hey, again, Big Ten Player of the Year last year for Maryland. Very talented switch hitter. Bubba Elaine so far this year, he's hitting .273 with an OPS of .878. Well, we know Jake Pilarski can hit 101, but look at that breaking ball. I'll tell you what, when he's able to throw 2 pitches for strikes like he was able to last night, as a hitter, if you have to ramp up for 101 and he's able to throw a second pitch for a strike, that's just unhittable at any level for any hitter. And that's kind of what Jake Pilarski was doing last night. I talked about it with Braydon Fisher. Another thing that Jake does that I really, really like, he's super competitive, and he has a lot of energy, he has a lot of emotions, and he has a lot of adrenaline, but he's not emotional, so and that's kind of a tricky little mix right there, and he's very, very good at it. He uses that adrenaline to get his fastball up to triple digits, and he was dropping that. Look at that emotion right there. See, good emotion, but not emotional in the sense that he's not riding with every single result of every single pitch. His emotions aren't, So Jake Pilarski, very good performance last night, throwing that dart with his four seam, but throwing 2 pitches for strikes. You're looking at Rain Don Cone and the center field camera last night of Osage. They usually put on a pretty good show with their broadcast. Their play-by-play voice does a very, very good job. Their camera angles are usually very good, but I think they were struggling a touch, at least in the first 6 or 7 innings last night with their center field camera. So you're getting a good look from the side at Rain Don Cone, one of the Dodgers' top prospects. Shortstop type guy. He played second base last night. I think him and Wilman Diaz will switch back and forth quite a bit at Rancho. So, hey, there's a good look at Rain Don Cone. He had 3 hits last night, so good hit tool for him. Good long and rangy young prospect, 6'2". I'm super excited about this young man. This is Kyle Nevin. We got to see him in the Freeway Series quite a bit, where he played first base while his dad was managing in the first base dugout for the Angels. Hey, he went to Baylor. He was actually going to go to OU for his last year before he got drafted by the Dodgers, so I got to see him quite a bit at Baylor. I'll tell you, he can hit. And another thing about him, 6'2". Just give you kind of a backstory on him. Bubba Elaine, who we're getting ready to talk about here in a minute, played for Maryland. As a matter of fact, Bubba Elaine was the Big Ten Player of the Year at Maryland last year. Maryland played Baylor, so it was Bubba Elaine on Maryland versus Kyle Nevin, Baylor. And the first thing Bubba Elaine remembers about Nevin was that he was playing right field. I think it was right field. It was one of the outfield positions. And one of the Maryland guys hit one over the fence, and Kyle Nevin actually went up and robbed it. That was the first memory that Bubba Elaine had of Kyle Nevin, and Bubba's the one who told me that story while I was talking to him and interviewing him. So Kyle Nevin, very good athlete, long and rangy at 6'2", can definitely play the outfield. He's played some first base. The Dodgers have had him playing at third, and so he's very versatile. And the thing about him too, I really think he's going to get into this developmental system and just get better and better and better and make leaps and bounds. So very excited to watch the process and the progress of Kyle Nevin. Chris Newell, another one of those guys in the Dodgers system that you just got to chalk up to the scouting service for the Dodgers, because I'll tell you what, he wasn't drafted all that high as far as being a draft pick, but he is a guy that is super talented, and he's very fast, and he's a great base stealer. Check this out. At Virginia, while he's in college his last year there, he stole 37 bases and only got caught 4 times, and then he hit 13 home runs. So kind of like Johnny DeLuca, he's that perfect mix, and he's left-handed too, so that's always good. He's that perfect mix of size, power, and speed. He's going to be able to steal some bases and hit home runs. He has the potential to be a 20-20 guy. Again, he stole 37 bases at Maryland, so he might be a 30-30 guy in the right as he gets bigger and stronger and gets a little bit more acclimated to professional baseball. So who knows? He has that kind of potential as far as being the great combo between size, power, and speed. The show on the night was definitely stole by who you're seeing on the screen here, and that is Madison Jeffrey. Okay, he was 98 to 100. That's what you're seeing right here. And his slider was absolutely filthy, both the left-handers and right. Look at that slider right there. That is, and the confidence he carries himself with. I love it. Whenever I always like to give names to the articles that I do in the features I do on these players, and the name of his article, look at this slider, just dirty, was straight up dog. He is an absolute dog, and D-A-W-G, meaning he is a guy that you want on the bump when the game matters, because he has supreme confidence, and he comes right at you with that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, that big-time dirty slider, both to right-handers and left-handers. And I'll tell you what, when Madison Jeffrey pitches like he did last night, there's only 2 words of advice for hitters, and those 2 words of advice would be good luck.